do some reading together, perhaps. Let's see. So we're reading from chapter 5. This is a new chapter in the Embankment of Separation, which we just added. And this is a pretty off-the-charts, high theoretical topic. Sometimes we call things that are high as just something which really doesn't seem very relevant to me and my personal distress situation, trying to figure out my finances and my health and this thing and that thing. But we should understand that Shoka Moha Bhayapaha, one of the benefits of hearing Krishna Katha, or three of the benefits, is Shoka Moha Bhayapaha, that all our fear, lamentation, and illusion go away. So this is a medicine that we have to take. And you can ask my wife, I have a whole bag of medicines, about 10 different medicines I have to take during the day. It's really, I hate it. I'm a terrible patient, and I just whine and cry about it all the time. But we have to take the medicine, even if we don't have a taste for it. If we continue taking the medicine, we'll get some taste. So I want to read from this chapter, the 10 stages of Viraha. This is Guru Maharaj's, this is from a class that he gave on Chaitanya Charitamrita. And I'd like to just read through and make some comments as we go along. So this is Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila, chapter 13, text 37 to 41. And why don't we ask our illustrious Chaitanya Prabhu if you want to do some reading. I'm going to start.
Hey, thanks, Prabhu. Sure. So the 10 stages of Viraha, and this is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi Lila 13:37 to 41. E Madhya Lila Nama Lila Mukhya Dama Sesha Asta Dasa Varsha Antya Lila Nama. The activities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in his travels after he accepted sannyas are his principal pastimes. His activities during his remaining 18 years are called the Antya Lila, or the final portion of his pastimes. Charya Madhye Chaya Vatsara Bhattya Gana Sanghe Prema Bhakti Lao Laila Nitya Gita Range. For 6 of the 18 years that he continuously stayed in Jagannath Puri, he regularly performed kirtan, inducing all the devotees to love Krishna simply by chanting and dancing.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu spent 18 years in Puri, 6 years, as mentioned here, and then the final 12 years when he locked himself up in the Gambhira. These particular 6 years were when he was working with his lieutenants of his mission. He was doing kirtan. That was how he was training them. It reminds me of a story I heard from Mahatma Prabhu. He was the temple president in Vancouver, Canada. And he had been on a few morning walks with Srila Prabhupada and had even attended a class or two, but he never really had much personal association. So he came down for Rath Yatra in San Francisco, and they found out that there was going to be a meeting of all the temple presidents with Srila Prabhupada. And he was very interested to attend that because he wanted to see how Prabhupada dealt with the management kind of things. And he was thinking, because Prabhupada's managing an international society, and he wasn't using a telephone. It's amazing. Chaitanya Prabhu, you're a good businessman. You're an organizer. To manage an international society without email and a little bit of on the side of the phone, but just using snail mail, it's astonishing. So anyway, he was very curious to see how Prabhupada was doing that and what message he would have for the temple presidents. So when he went to the meeting, he was surprised that Srila Prabhupada didn't speak at all about management. He just spoke to them about Krishna and talked to them some things about preaching. And then he could understand this is Srila Prabhupada's method of training and organizing his leaders. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did like that. And Srila Prabhupada's following in his line. We have both two types of bhakti. We have Mukhya Bhakti, which primary bhakti, which is Panchanga Bhakti, chanting the holy names, associating with devotees, staying in the Dham, hearing Krishna Katha, worshiping the deity. And we have Gonanga Bhakti, or secondary Bhakti, which are things which support the Mukhya, but they're not direct themselves. And those are things like collecting money, building temples, going out on the street and selling books. They're Bhakti because we're doing them on behalf of Guru. But it's not that anybody who sells books, even Srila Prabhupada's books, if it happens to be a bookstore or something, they're not going to be practicing bhakti. They may get some bhakti ummukhi sakriti, technically, they may get some devotional piety from it, but it's not considered a direct anga of bhakti by itself. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he came and he taught us this direct process of bhakti, and that's how he trained up his followers. So Chaitanya Prabhu, do you want to keep reading some?
Sure. Vadasa Vatsara Sesha Rahila Nila Chale Premavasta Sakaila Asvadana Chale. For the remaining 12 years that he stayed in Jagannath Puri, he taught everyone how to taste the transcendental mellow ecstasy of love of Krishna by tasting it himself. Purport: a person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness always feels separation from Krishna, because such a feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his last 12 years of existence within this world at Jagannath Puri, taught the people of the world how, with a feeling of separation, one can develop his dormant love for Krishna. Such feelings of separation or meeting with Krishna are different stages of love of Godhead. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service. The highest stage is called Prema Bhakti, but this stage is attained by executing Sadhana Bhakti. One should not try to elevate himself artificially to the stage of Prema Bhakti without seriously following the regulated principles of Sadhana Bhakti. Prema Bhakti is the stage of relishing, whereas Sadhana Bhakti is the stage of improving in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught this cult of devotional service in full detail by practical application in his own life. It is said, therefore, Apani Achari Bhakti Sikkaimu Sabare. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Krishna himself, and in the role of Krishna Bhakta, a devotee of Krishna, he instructed the entire world how one can execute devotional service and thus go back home, back to God in due course of time.
Hi, Krishna. I think I'll make a couple of comments. So these 12 years, the word Shikaila is used, and Aswadana. Aswadana means that Mahaprabhu was relishing, and by his relishing, he was teaching us. It's such an important point. I remember years ago, I was in one temple, and one devotee told us that actually giving class is not a service. He said, but that's just something for our own play. But here we're hearing from Mahaprabhu that his relishment, Aswadana, that's his Sikaila, that's his teaching. That's such an important principle. This is love. If we see there's somebody who says, I love you, but they don't relish us, they don't pay attention to us, they ignore us, or they don't care for what we're going through, then we think, where is the love there? There's no real love. So there has to be some attention, some relishment to us for that to really be love. And we're hearing from this that this is such an important principle. This is the main thing that Mahaprabhu wanted to come to teach us. We often say that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sankirtanaika Pitaro. Vrindavan Das Thakur says this. He's the father of the Sankirtan movement, where he inaugurated the chanting of Hare Krishna. That's said sometimes, many times by Srila Prabhupada. He uses those exact words. He inaugurated the chanting of Hare Krishna. But is it true? If you think about it, it's not true. Because the chanting of Hare Krishna was already there. And we read in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam that even in Satya Yuga, there was chanting of the holy names. And in the beginning of his Krishna Samhita, Thakur Bhaktivinoda also explains that there's different holy names, there's different types of kirtan that are going on in every age. So the Hare Krishna mantra was already there, kirtan was already there. Advaitacharya and the devotees were already doing it before Mahaprabhu appeared. So then what is it that Mahaprabhu came to give us in particular? Shikaila Ashwadana. He's teaching us by relishing. And what does that relishment mean? He's in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And in particular, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in the mood of Radha when she's feeling separation. And this separation, Srila Prabhupada states here very clearly in his purport, in the first sentence, he says, the feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Such an amazing thing. We want to come to the stage of prema bhakti. We're practicing sadhana bhakti. We can't imitate, as Srila Prabhupada describes. Those deep feelings of separation are there out of love. You can't say, I feel separation from Krishna. Sometimes devotees, I find this a lot of times with some devotees in Russia and Ukraine. Oh, I love Krishna, or I had a dream of Mother Yashoda, or this or that. And it's a little sentimental, very sentimental. But bhakti is something practical. We have to prove to Krishna that we're worthy of something. We have to practice sadhana bhakti, please our Gurudev, and then we can advance to something more. So we can keep reading. Does anybody have any reflections or comments at this point? Any questions or anything? Anybody? Okay. Okay, let's see here. How much more do we have? Yeah, Chaitanya, but why don't you keep reading?
Okay, great.
Yeah, please.
So this is text 40 and 41. Ratri Divasa Krishna Viharas Purana Anmadera Chesta Kare Pralapa Vachana. Day and night, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu felt separation from Krishna. Manifesting symptoms of his separation, he cried and talked very inconsistently, like a madman. Shri Radha Pralapa Yaiche Udava Darshane Saimata Unmada Pralapa Kare Ratridine. As Srimati Radharani talked inconsistently when she met Uddhava, so also Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu relished both day and night such ecstatic talk in the mood of Srimati Radharani. Purport. In this connection, one should refer to Srimati Radharani's soliloquy after meeting Uddhava in Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu presented a similar picture of such ecstatic imaginary talking, full of jealousy and madness, symptomizing neglect by Krishna. Srimati Radharani, criticizing a bumblebee, talked just like a madwoman. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in the last days of his pastimes, exhibited all the symptoms of such ecstasy. In this connection, one should refer to the 4th chapter of the Adi Leela, verses 107 and 108. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace, Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhu. So this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and we should understand this is Srila Prabhupada's instructions to us. This is Srila Prabhupada's teachings that Mahaprabhu is Krishna in the mood of Radharani. And in particular, he's speaking here about how Mahaprabhu in this Adi Lila chapter 13, we're getting a bit of a preview of the Madhya Lila and Antya Lilas, how he's in the mood of Radha when she met Uddhava. And as we've been speaking on our Tuesday morning, at least in India, classes on meeting in Kurukshetra, from the 47th chapter, the 10th canto, the Brahma Gita, this is the discussion Radharani is having with a bumblebee. And this is her madness. And it's so attractive that Krishna himself, he wants to come to experience, to relish that. So I'd like to go on and keep reading some. I hope everybody's good with that. I'd like to have more reading, and we're going through this book and having some discussion. Again, if there's anybody who has any questions or comments or anything, you can go ahead and raise your hand or verbally say something. I'm going to go ahead and put this on the screen again here. Let's see. Yeah. Nandarani, are you there?
Yes, Prabhu. Yeah.
Would you like to read from the section "Separation is Topmost"? Like your hat. Are you there?
Okay, I will do that.
Okay.
Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yeah, you kind of went in and out for a second, I think, but I can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. Mahaprabhu teaches how the topmost mood of worship of Krishna is in separation, viraha. So, if you can make him Krishna, how can he
If
feel
you make him
separation
Krishna.
from Krishna?
If you make him Krishna. Yeah.
If you make him Krishna, how can he feel separation from Krishna? It is a simple thing, but people cannot understand it. He is Krishna, no doubt, but what is his mood? He always feels separation from and cries for Krishna, and he teaches that to the whole world. He is a practical teacher, not a theoretical speaker like Krishna. Krishna is a theoretical speaker, whereas Gaura is a practical teacher. He is practically teaching this, but you cannot understand it. So you are stopping his crying. Stopping his crying is very painful to Gaura. You should understand this thing.
Let me just
This is a very
make a comment or two here. So Guru Maharaj here, he's speaking particularly about our deity worship and how many devotees, they put this peacock feather on Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's a controversial thing. I can tell you something a little personal. Just a week or so ago, it's one of my emails I have to reply to. And it's good I'm reminding myself right now. I got something from one of the main people in the ISKCON deity worship ministry. And they said that they're checking through their understanding about this peacock feather thing, and they wanted to hear some things from me about it. So we're going to write something up. My Guru Maharaj asked me some years ago to write something about it, which I did, and he put his name on it and gave it to the GBC body as a proposal from him, suggesting that we not put the peacock feather on the deity of Krishna. I know it's a real common thing, and why is it common? Just to give a little ISKCON history, because Srila Prabhupada told Janani Vasprabhu to do that in Mayapur, and Srila Prabhupada told Malati to do that. And what else can we expect from them? Of course, they're going to follow the instructions of Srila Prabhupada. To my knowledge, and I've asked this from Janani Vas and Malati both, Prabhupada never explained it. It was never even recorded, much less being written down. And it wasn't that Srila Prabhupada, he never said, this is something I want in all times, in all places in our society. Maybe he did, or maybe he didn't. But there's no statement like that, that he did. So it's a little bit of a controversial thing. And I don't have any illusion that my comments today are going to make any difference about that. My purpose in speaking about this right now is just to share with you guys as friends some little understanding about this subject and some of the history of the controversy and things of it, and let devotees make their own decision. Guru Maharaj wasn't, actually, I remember going places with him, and once we went to one temple in Europe, and I was helping him offer obeisances in front of the deities during greeting the deities. And when we looked at the deities, Radha and Krishna, they're small deities about so big, Radha Krishna, and they were sitting about this far apart, a huge distance between them. And it was clear the pujari, whoever was doing the dressing or whatever, he was frantic and he was going as quick as he could, and he didn't get a chance to put the deities close back together again before the deity doors opened. So it was something, it was a little disturbing even to see. And I asked Guru Maharaj, I said, should we say something to the pujari? I've been a pujari for a long time in different places. And he said, no. Don't say anything. Because he didn't want to create a disturbance. But at the same time, he spoke things, and he spoke in terms of philosophy. So for me, that's very clear. He wants devotees to understand the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is one of the valuable jewels we get in Embankment of Separation, is to understand that inner mood of Krishna when he's come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he's feeling separation. That's his purpose. If he wants to experience something as Krishna, then he comes as Krishna himself. But as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is coming, Bhakta Rupa, right, he's coming in the mood of a devotee. And he wants to relish being a devotee. How many devotees relish when you say that you're God, you're Bhagavan? No devotee wants to hear that. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, when devotees sometimes, some Mayavadis, or once in Jagannath Puri, they started chanting Mahaprabhu's name, Dvaitacharya who was in kirtan with them, and Mahaprabhu was putting his fingers in his ears and chanting Vishnu, Vishnu, Vishnu. He didn't like to hear that. And he's teaching us we shouldn't want to hear that. But of course, he is Krishna himself. He is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we should understand his inner mood. He wants to feel separation from Krishna. He wants to feel the mood of Radha. But if we tell him you're Krishna, then how can he experience Radharani's feelings of separation? Because now he's there as Krishna. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu didn't stay in Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he visited Vrindavan, he went to the place known as Imli Tal, which is where Krishna previously went when he was crying in separation from Radharani. Radharani had left the Ras Leela, and Krishna went searching for her, and he was crying and chanting Radhe, Radhe, Radhe. And he went and sat down in this kunj near the bank of the Jamuna, underneath a tamarind tree, Imli Tal. And in separation from Radha, Shama Sundar, his blackish complexion went away, and Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi, he became the complexion of Radha. So Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he visited Vrindavan, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta established a temple in that place. He went to that same Imli Tal. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went there. It's described in Bhakti Ratnakar. And now he's the same Krishna, but he's in the mood of Radha. And when he went to that place, he's not chanting Radhe, Radhe, he's chanting Krishna, Krishna, and feeling separation from himself. He's not thinking that he is Krishna. He's so absorbed in the mood of Radha, he's thinking he's a devotee. He's thinking of himself like that. And in that mood, chanting Krishna, Krishna, suddenly something happened, and Gaura Sundar became Shama Sundar. His golden complexion disappeared and his blackish complexion came. And then he thought, this is very bad. I can't fulfill my purpose here. I wanted to come and feel and experience the feelings of Srimati Radharani in separation from Krishna. But her feelings are so intense in this place. Her bhajan is so intense that I'm experiencing that Krishna can't keep away. And Krishna is me. So all of a sudden I become Krishna and I'm not in the mood of a devotee anymore. And this is really bad because I want to taste the mood of being a devotee. I want to cry in separation from Krishna. I want to know what Radharani experienced. And now this blackish complexions come. The next thing, my flute's going to come. And then the Sikhi Pichi, the peacock feather is going to come. And it's going to be Krishna Lila, not Gaura Lila. So I have to leave this place. And I have to go someplace which is two opposites in one container. It has to be Vrindavan because Radharani, her mood is only there in Vrindavan. She never leaves Vrindavan. It has to be Vrindavan, but it can't be Vrindavan because in Vrindavan, this Sham Sundar form comes. So he left Vrindavan and he came to Jagannath Puri, which is Gupta Vrindavan, which is one of the subject matters we'll be hearing about in Embankment of Separation. So Guru Maharaj is speaking here that we shouldn't stop the crying of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's very, very painful for him, and we should understand this thing. He was so intent about that. I really don't, I saw him, he wasn't caring about politics or that everybody should follow this deity worship standard or this, that he wanted devotees to understand the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was his desire. And I hope the devotees reading this book, they understand that nicely. In the back of the book, we gave a few appendixes, one of which is a purport from Srila Prabhupada in the 4th chapter of the Adi Leela, where he says that we should not disturb the mood of Mahaprabhu. He's in the mood of Krishna, so we shouldn't disturb his mood. Similarly, there's a letter to Satsvarup Maharaj, where he says that these studying these similarities between Krishna Lila and Gaura Lila and Ramachandra's Lila. He said they're very fascinating. But we shouldn't mix the two. We should understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in a different mood, and he doesn't want to be like the Lord. He wants to be in the mood of a devotee. The subject was also an important one for my Guru Maharaj because he grew up in Orissa. And I'm speaking all these things so you understand the context of it. He grew up in Orissa in a Gaudiya Vaishnava family. As he once told us, I knew many of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers before I came to Prabhupada, before I met him. He knew so many Gaudiya Mat devotees. He grew up, they were singing songs of Narottam Das Thakur and different Gaudiya bhajans and chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. And he grew up with worship of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And no one, except for, I'm sorry to put it this way, I'm not trying to say anything negative about our society, but no one outside of ISKCON, with the exception of a few Sahajya groups, puts a peacock feather on the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No one does that. And there's philosophical reasons, and that includes Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. He forbade the devotees from doing it. Just like in Mayapur, it's a little controversial thing, but controversy is not bad for us. If we want to run away from controversy, then it means you're not going to be thinking very much. And it might be antiseptic and prophylactic, and people, temple presidents like Chaitanya Prabhu, when he was a president, he may like it, that everybody just follows what he tells them and nobody asks questions, because then it's real simple. But it's not very healthy for bhakti. It's not very healthy for a congregation or for a society. Devotees should think. So some years ago, before they established the Panchatattva in Mayapur, there was some discussion, and some devotees were asking Advaita Acharya, should we put a beard on him or not? Should the deity of Advaita have a beard? And it's interesting to note, just as a side thing, that when, who was it, Atmatattva Prabhu, I believe it was, went to South India to have the deities made, the stapati, the person who makes the deities, he refused to make a deity of Advaita Acharya with a beard. He asked him, he said, is this personality Vishnu Tattva? Because he's not a Gaudiya Vaishnava, he doesn't know. And Atmatattva said, yes, he's Vishnu Tattva. And he said, forget it. Vishnu Tattva doesn't have a beard. He doesn't get old. And actually someone asked myself, and I was happy to find out later on that I said the same thing as Jayapataka Maharaj when they asked him about this. He cited a purport in Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's Chaitanya Bhagavat, wherein he says that we should not put a beard on Advaita Acharya. But the devotees, they decided, well, because Srila Prabhupada instructed the artists sometimes to put a beard, paint Advaita Acharya with a beard. And that's also something, just by the way, which you also find in some, not all, but some old Gaudiya paintings also. And I actually wrote an article about this with some different pictures and things. There's some old pictures of Advaita Acharya with a beard. I'm not aware of any deities of Advaita with a beard, though. Some paintings have him with a beard and some paintings don't. But one of the main points the devotees decided in Mayapur to put a beard on Advaita Acharya was because the Panchatattva in Hawaii, who were established during the time of Srila Prabhupada, Advaita Acharya had a beard. And so they said, oh, Prabhupada approved this. At least he didn't say yes or no, but at least he didn't say no about it. And so we did. So these are institutional considerations, and we cooperate together for the sake of the society. And for me as an individual, I can tell you, it's a little awkward sometimes, because Janani Vasprabhu is my Guru Jan, and I have all respect for him. He's a wonderful, exalted Vaishnava, and Malati Mataji is another very exalted Vaishnava. And I respect him, but Srila Prabhupada personally instructed them that you should put a peacock feather on the deity of Mahaprabhu. My Guru Maharaj said something completely different. We should not put a peacock feather that causes him some pain. So it puts me in a situation. I have to defend my Guru Maharaj and speak up for him and speak the things that he wanted to hear, that he wanted devotees to understand. But simultaneously, I have to speak according to my position and give respect, due respect to Malati and Janani Vas. And also, it's not my position to try to create some disturbance in the society. But devotees should understand the philosophy behind this. Why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta forbade the devotees from putting a peacock feather on the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And another reason, just incidentally, my Guru Maharaj was very intent about this, was that, as I was mentioning, he grew up in a Gaudiya Vaishnava family. He knew many Gaudiya Math devotees, and some of them were criticizing ISKCON. Later on he heard, and they were saying, oh, these ISKCON devotees, they don't know Siddhanta. They put a peacock feather on the deity of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And this is something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta forbade. It's upper Siddhanta, we shouldn't do it. And that caused great pain in Guru Maharaj's heart. He doesn't like to see our society criticized. He doesn't want to see Srila Prabhupada criticized. So for those reasons, he spoke up. But he didn't try to just through force or through some ecclesiastical, institutional mode, try to get people to change things. Rather, he wanted them to understand philosophy. So we're speaking all this right now for that. Nandarani, do you want to keep reading?
Yes, Prabhu, I can.
But maybe before you start, does anybody have any other questions or comments about that? Himanti wrote something. She said, "Thank you for discussing this." It's not a bad topic. It's a legal topic to discuss. And especially in the sense, I'll tell you honestly too, Srila Prabhupada never said this is a standard for our whole society, nor did Srila Prabhupada ever, to my understanding, say why it should be done. He didn't explain to Jananivas or to Malini. I can imagine some certain reasons that, especially for Indian people, when they come into a temple and they see the deity of Mahaprabhu, and they're thinking, who is this deity here? Oh, he has a peacock feather. And I said, that's like Krishna. He's Krishna. But for someone to walk in off the street in America or in Russia, they're not going to have the same experience. It's not that some common person walks into the temple and sees, what is this? Well, that's a deity. Oh, he has a peacock feather on his head. It must be God. I don't think they're going to put two and two together like that. I think more, if it was for that purpose, it was more for our devotees in our society and maybe for some outside Indian people. That's the only reason I can think. In any case, one reason to do it is because Srila Prabhupada said. And also, we want to cooperate with the temples. If the temple president, the head pujari, they have a standard for that, fine. I'm not encouraging anybody to be a troublemaker. But there's nothing wrong with asking questions. There's nothing wrong with discussion. And this is a good question to ask. Why is it that we're doing something that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta forbade and other Gaudiya Vaishnavas? Why are we doing this? And we should have a reason. Maybe the reason is because Prabhupada told Jananivas Prabhu, Amalati. That's the reason. Anyway, Nandarani, go ahead, unless anybody has anything else on this.
This is a very confidential, very deep philosophy, viraha, feeling separation. Prabhupada says that viraha excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. This is the topmost. Mahaprabhu is always in that mood. He always feels separation from Krishna, always cries for Krishna. Viraha means external separation. Externally, Krishna is away, but internally, in the core of the heart, he is there. That is viraha, separation. Krishna is away, gone somewhere to Mathura or Dwarka. But deeply you are thinking of him in your heart. Therefore, he is in your heart. At the time of external separation, there is union in the heart. But at the time of external union, there is separation in the heart. That is sambhoga and viraha, union and separation. Do you want to
Go ahead.
comment, Prabhu?
I'll comment on in just a minute. Go ahead and finish the next couple paragraphs.
At the time of union, the Premi Bhakta wants to bring his dearmost beloved into the core of the heart and embrace him there very tightly. That is the feeling at the time of union. But at the time of separation, the Premi Bhakti wants to take Krishna out from the core of the heart, to kiss him and relish the transcendental nectarian honey emanating from his lips. That is separation. This is our philosophy. Viraha means external separation, but internal union. That is the highest. So the feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Must I do the few lines at the bottom?
Vishwanath Chakrabarti, I'll go ahead and stop there. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur, as we sometimes maybe heard us discuss, he gives a definition of viraha in his Arthadarshini commentary. He says that V means vishesh, and raha means rahasya. It's a compound word, meaning vishesh means some special thing, and rahasya means confidential, meaning it's a confidential union. It seems like separation, but it's actually union. Jiva Goswami in Priti Sandarbha gives a similar definition for the word vipralamba. Vipralamba and viraha are two synonyms for each other. They both mean separation. He says, Tatra vipralambo viprakarshena lambaha prapta yashasa tata. The vipralamba means, lamba, the word lamba means attainment, to get something of a distance, vipra. So it means external separation, but internal union. This is such a very, very deep subject and such a very, very important topic to understand. Sometimes I feel a little bit discouraged, to tell you the truth, personally, when I see that devotees even, they're not so much interested in Krishna Katha. I'll give you an example, and I hope I don't hurt anybody's feelings who are friends with us on Facebook. But I posted something some time back about our wedding, Krishna Kun and I. It was our anniversary, and there was like over 1,000 likes on it and a few hundred comments. Devotees just went nuts talking about our anniversary. But when I post something about Krishna Katha or some lecture or something, maybe there's 8 or 10 hits on that, not very much. But people go nuts when you talk about someone's marriage or something like that. And that's okay. I don't mean it as a condemnation. It's just an observation. This is the situation in our society. And in language of my Guru Maharaj, his observation was that most of us have what he called karma adhikar. That's, again, not a condemnation. It's an observation. Karma adhikar just means that our qualification is not there for bhakti. Our qualification is there to work hard. And therefore, we have family life, we have a job, we have this thing and that thing to do. But we should try to understand. And I saw he was just, back then there was blood coming out from the pores of his skin sometimes. He was just so intensely wanting us to understand, to wake up and understand something about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because we're so external. We're so much absorbed in ourselves. That's religion. And we all complain sometimes. It's the most common thing I experienced traveling. We're in Europe now, traveling for the first time in 3 years. And we were just in Poland and Lithuania and Latvia. Now we're in Hungary. And so many devotees, wherever we go, they complain of, the institution. It's mechanical. It's like a religion. It's this, it's that. But we have to look a little deeper, because what we see is really a reflection of ourself. Or in the famous comic strip in America, Pogo, in one famous line, he said, "We've met the enemy, and he is us." So really, it's just a reflection of our own consciousness. And if we want to change things, bhakti is a very practical process. The process of bhakti is not to complain or criticize. Nowhere will you find that. And anyone said that you're going to, by criticizing, complaining, that's going to give you bhakti. Bhakti is a positive solution. It's solution oriented in its intrinsic quality. So our solution is to hear and chant about Krishna. And by hearing and chanting about Krishna, this platform of Vaidhi that we're on, and this platform of being so external and so selfish, gradually that'll go away. But because we are so selfish in things, that's why it's like a religion. Because we've met the enemy and he's us. We're so mechanical and things. So the solution is to be the solution that we want to see. That's bhakti. So we should understand something about our philosophy. By going deep on this philosophy, by hearing about it, then there'll be some transformation little by little in our heart. So Guru Maharaj is saying, oh, this is a very confidential, very deep philosophy. And that's the first clause of the second paragraph coming right after the first paragraph. Where he's speaking about, excuse me, I'm going to take a couple cloves. Where he's speaking about how we should understand the mood of Mahaprabhu and how his mood is separation. And if we try to stop his crying, that's painful to him. And then the next thing is that this is very confidential, very deep philosophy. So many devotees, I've had very senior devotees tell me, well, this peacock feather thing, yeah, I guess that's kind of like Raganuga Bhakti, huh? One very senior devotee told me that. I didn't really say much because I didn't want to, it was presumptuous on my part to try to correct him or anything. But no, it's not Raganuga Bhakti. It's basic principle in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. To understand that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhakta Rup. It's one of the first things we understand from Chaitanya Charitamrita. But for devotees, especially in the West, it's very difficult to understand that now God has come as a devotee. Wow. Try to get your head around that. It's hard enough to understand that God is a little blue boy with lots of girlfriends and cows. I remember in 1971 and 1972, I was a young boy growing up in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And we used to go, there's an abandoned house that we used to go and play in sometimes. And in that abandoned house, some hippies had been staying there. And they cut out pictures from Prabhupada's Krishna book and stuck them on the walls. And I remember staring at those pictures for the longest time, trying to figure out what in the world are they about. There was no text. It was just the pictures. And I could understand this is something religious. This is something spiritual. I could understand this is something traditional. This is something from India. I could figure that out also. But who is this blue boy? And who are all these girls and cows? And what is, there must be some stories behind this, but I couldn't understand it. So it's not an easy subject to understand Krishna. It's very confidential. It's very, very deep. And so just to understand Krishna as God, that he is blue boy, that's very difficult. But then to understand that that same God, Krishna, comes as a devotee and he's crying for himself, feeling separation from himself. Whoa, whoa, whoa. We'll get a headache just trying to think about that. So in Embankment of Separation, my Guru Maharaj is trying to help us to understand the feelings of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. It's such a very, very important thing for us. But it's a very, very deep philosophy. And it is separation, because that's the predominant mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's crying for Krishna. So again, if you put a peacock feather on his head, how can he cry? So Guru Maharaj comments that Prabhupada says this viraha excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. This is the topmost. And Mahaprabhu is always in that mood. He always feels separation from Krishna. So there's many statements from Srila Prabhupada in his books about this. We put together something some years ago in one of our Bindu magazines about this, because I found even amongst Gaudiya Vaishnavas, even in the Gaudiya Mutt, that some devotees, they have the idea that union is higher than separation. Well, you can say yes and you can say no about that. Maybe we'll come to that point in a moment. But I'd like to just read a few things from Srila Prabhupada about this. Let's see. Here we go. Krishna Balaram Prabhu, are you there?
Yeah, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Would you like to read this on the screen? Can you see? Hare Krishna.
Yeah, I can see it. Separation is the highest divine grace. But Krishna can be felt. Krishna can be present more acutely in separation. That is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, to love Krishna in separation. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Hename. Everything is vacant without Govinda, without Krishna. That is the highest perfection. When we see that everything is nothing and only Krishna consciousness is there, that is the highest. That is the gopis. Therefore, the gopis are so exalted. They cannot forget Krishna for a single moment.
You're kind of going in and out for a minute there, Prabhuji, but I think everybody could read also on the screen. So this is Srila Prabhupada's teaching. Although Prabhupada is in 1973, he's speaking to a group of devotees in Los Angeles, most of whom were just taking drugs a few years before and who understood practically nothing about Krishna. But he's speaking about these feelings of separation. It's a very important topic for us to understand, at least theoretically. And that's clear that Prabhupada was stressing it so much. Mm-hmm. There's many places Srila Prabhupada speaks about this. There's a purport, let's see if I can bring this up, to Madhya Lila chapter 4, text 197. Let's see here. Prabhupada says a similar thing. Oops. I'm fighting with my computer. Okay, let me put this on the screen. And Bana Biharani, let me put this on the screen. Would you like to read?
Sure.
Okay, just in the green. You'll see the green highlight. Should come up in just a minute.
Worship and separation is considered by the Gaudiya Madhva Sampradaya to be the topmost level of devotional service. According to this conception, the devotee thinks of himself as very poor and neglected by the Lord. Thus he addresses the Lord as Dina Dayadra Nata, as did Madhavendra Puri. Such an ecstatic feeling is the highest form of devotional service.
Srila Prabhupada goes on in the purport, and again to speak about Radharani, who was moved when she saw Uddhava and Vrindavan, and how these similar feelings are experienced in our sampradaya. This is the gift of our sampradaya. So although this all seems very high and theoretical to us, and I'm sympathetic with that, I understand, but this is the mood of our sampradaya, and at least one gift that we can get from Embankment of Separation. One gift that we can get by reading these things is we can feel, to use a Jewish word, we can feel like a real schmuck. We can feel like we're really a loser. I'm just a nobody. I should have something. Therefore, Madhavendra Puri, he's crying. He's feeling himself very poor and neglected by the Lord. Well, who are we? We don't have feelings for the Lord, but we can feel that why I don't have any feelings like this. I'm just thinking about when is prasadam. I'm just thinking about, my sense gratification, my marriage, my divorce, my job, my this, my that. That's my absorption. I'm not absorbing Krishna. So this is a gift that we can get from these teachings, even though they're not so relevant for us in many ways, but they are relevant in other ways. So I want to put a few other statements from Srila Prabhupada up here. And Bana, you're a good reader. Why don't you, would you like to read some more?
Sure.
Okay, let me pull up on the screen again. There we go. Now it's in yellow.
A person who is advanced in Krishna consciousness always feels separation from Krishna because such a feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in his last 12 years of existence within this world at Jagannath Puri, taught the people of the world how, with a feeling of separation, one can develop his dormant love of Krishna. Such feelings of separation or meeting with Krishna are different stages of love of Godhead. These feelings develop in time when a person seriously engages in devotional service.
Beautiful statement. And that last sentence is very hopeful, that these feelings will naturally come up when we seriously engage in devotional service. Our problem is we're not seriously engaging in devotional service. We're practicing mixed bhakti. We have our material enjoyment, we have our fun, our absorption in material things, and on the side we're practicing some bhakti. But we should understand that Prabhupada's saying here that this feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna. It's such an intense thing. And because it's such an intense thing, Krishna himself came as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He wanted to relish that. And this is his mission, his movement, to teach us, to give us Radha Bhav, to give us the mood of Srimati Radharani. A very, very astonishing thing. Ahimante, are you there? Would you like to read this next paragraph in green?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, yes I am.
Hare
I
Krishna.
just wanted to say that point also blew my mind of the feeling of separation excels the feeling of meeting Krishna.
That's very, very astonishing, isn't it?
Sorry Prabhu, where am I reading? I've just lost my...
From in the green section, should be on
Okay,
your screen, where it says
yeah.
the gopis of Vrindavan were so attached to Krishna.
The gopis of Vrindavan were so attached to Krishna that they were not satisfied simply with the rasa dance at night. They wanted to associate with him and enjoy his company during the daytime also. When Krishna went to the forest with his cowherd boyfriends and cows, the gopis did not physically take part, but their hearts went with him. And because their hearts went, they were able to enjoy his company through strong feelings of separation. To acquire this strong feeling of separation is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya and his direct disciplic succession of Goswamis. When we are not in physical contact with Krishna, we can associate with him like the gopis through feelings of separation. Krishna's transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, and entourage are all identical with him. There are 9 different kinds of devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna in feelings of separation elevates the devotee to the highest perfectional stage, to the level of the gopis. Krishna Book, Chapter 35.
So this is what Srila Prabhupada came to give. This is what Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to give, these feelings of separation. And as we commented in the beginning, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, although we say that he inaugurated the Sankirtan movement, in one sense that's not true historically. The chanting was already going on before him. So then what did he give? He came and gave the Premanam Sankirtan movement. He gave the Sankirtan with the mood and the feelings of Srimati Radharani, those feelings of separation. And that's our disciplic succession. Very, very important principle to understand. Mukunda Prabhu, would you like to read something now? This last yellow thing, which is also from chapter 35 in Krishna book.
I can give it a try, Prabhu.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. If you can just raise the screen a little more, Prabhu.
Okay.
So I cannot see the bottom 2, I think, last 2.
Can you see
Yes,
now?
okay, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you so much. Those who are in the disciplic succession of the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya should always feel separation from Krishna, worship his transcendental form, and discuss his transcendental teachings, his pastimes, his qualities, and his entourage. That will enrich the devotees to the highest devotional perfection, feeling constant separation while engaged in the service of the Lord is the perfection of Krishna consciousness.
So this is what it means to be in the disciplic succession of the Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya. It means feeling separation. That's the gift of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Being in that disciplic succession means we should feel that separation, means we should worship the form of Krishna, speak about Krishna's teachings and pastimes, qualities, and his entourage. And that's going to give us the topmost thing. This is Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, which Prabhupada wanted to distribute to common people everywhere in the world. This is such an important message. If we don't understand this, then what is to keep us from just being like an ordinary religion, where we're doing something? What is the difference, you may ask, between a religion and spiritual life? Let's call Krishna consciousness something spiritual. What is the difference between? Well, religion, I would define here, as something which is done, and maybe the exact same thing externally. They may be chanting Hare Krishna, they may be wearing tilak and reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, but the motivation is different. And in some religious process, they're doing it because they're self-centered, because I want to get some benefit for myself, because I want something. I want money, I want a job, I want a wife, I want a husband, I want peace of mind. Everything is about me, me, me. That's the basis of religion. When I grew up in America, my father, when I was a teenager, he really tortured me. He was into these evangelical Christians like Oral Roberts and different people on television, these televangelists. And oh boy, and he would take me to church and they would say, you know, I believe in miracles and God's going to give money to all of us. And if you're a Christian, it means you're going to get lots of money. And that's religion. And we're not against that. Prabhupada said we shouldn't smash the Christians, because they're good people. At least they believe in God. That's a very good thing. We want to encourage that. But there's something higher. And we should understand what that thing is. And if we don't understand that higher thing, how are we really followers in the Gaudiya Sampradaya? How are we really followers of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? We should read Prabhupada's Krishna book. We should understand it. So I want to stop there. Does anybody have any reflections or comments they want to share on today's session? Krishna Kuhn, you didn't get a read or anything. Do you have any reflections or anything?
I just love the quote.
Okay, then come here. If you're going to say something, no, then I got to give you the mic. Or I can repeat. Okay, I'm sorry. She likes some quote that we read. She said that. Okay. So, Hemanti, you have something you want to share?
I think Mataji can go first, probably.
I'm sorry?
Mataji can go first, or?
No, you go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, this point is actually really bugging me for the last few days, is when you and it's so nice that you mentioned about the difference between religion and spirituality, because I was contemplating that, following Krishna consciousness, and myself coming from a Hindu religious background, I can see the shift where the focus is. And sometimes it scares me when, we read that a devotee's path is strewn with thorns. And then we think we get scared because obviously our motivation and our devotion is not so pure. We get scared for ourselves. What do I have to give up? Is I'm going to have to let go of so much attachments and so much things that make me feel secure on this path to Krishna Prem, or the spiritual path compared to a religious path, where we're doing a bit of devotion, but it's also sometimes maybe mixed with a bit of karma kanda, and but it's comfortable because all your family is doing it, and then you observe certain auspicious days, you do certain prayers and pujas, And then you carry on normally with material life because you want a bit of everything. You want to be religious, you want to have God's blessings in your life, and you want to also have a comfortable life. So I was really like, my heart was like really pondering that and just asking Krishna, like, what does that mean? Following a spiritual path and not worrying too much about material comforts and that kind of thing. So thank you, Prabhu. That was something that was quite mind-opening for me.
Well, thank you for saying all that. It's been such a problem in our society. You're coming from a Hindu background, so it's a little more natural for you. Krishna consciousness is a little more recognizable, at least. But especially for those of us from the West, it's such a radical different thing. And the way that oftentimes we interpret it, and I've seen this all over the world, and I think also in South Africa too, it's there, that we interpreted that, it means we have to be very renounced. And I shouldn't be attached, even devotees think, to my family, to my wife, or to my husband. And the more that I can exhibit my renunciation, then the more everybody's going to appreciate me. The more that I'm a real devotee. And we end up hurting ourselves, and we end up hurting people around us. We end up hurting the society because we're imitating something which is not real. And Srila Prabhupada, he didn't compromise Krishna consciousness. He said we should give up all the material desires and give everything to Krishna. Sarva dharma parityagya, he would quote Krishna's statement in the Gita. But Srila Prabhupada also wanted us to practice Varnashram Dharma. And Srila Prabhupada also created a society because he saw that devotees, people who were joining, weren't ready just to sit under the tree in Tompkins Square Park, like a New York version of Haridas Thakur, and sit and chant japa all day long. But they needed some practical engagement. And so he gave us that. And that's a very important thing to understand. And there's no shame in that. There may be some social stigma to it. Oh, you're not such a good devotee, this and that, because we have material desires. And then someone may say, well, if the way I'm speaking right now, you may say this is bad for bhakti because you're just softening things, you're watering things down, you're saying that it's okay for us to be in Maya and we can still be Krishna conscious. No. Our point is that Gaudiya Vaishnavas we see in India, I see in Jagannath Puri and in Vrindavan and Mayapur, traditional Vaishnavas who grew up in our Gaudiya Vaishnava line, they hear the philosophy, they know the philosophy, and they don't compromise it. At the same time, maybe they're not up to the standard, but then at least they can understand where they're at. And ideally, hopefully, generally, they don't try to imitate that. Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he speaks about two types of bhakti broadly, Sakaitava and Akaitava. Sakaitava means cheating bhakti, and it means I'm trying to pretend that I'm a pure devotee, that I'm a great personality, this and that. And it's very hard for us to make advancement in that way. And therefore, Raghunath Das Goswami, I'm meditating a lot on our last verse of his Govardhan Basa Prarthana Dasakam, which I'll be speaking on at Govardhan Retreat. He says, Twaye kapati satopi. He says, Twaye kapati sata. I'm a kapati and a sata. Sata means a criminal. And kapati means that I'm a duplicitous person. That's what I am. But nevertheless, my dear Giriraj, Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given me to you. So you don't consider whether I'm qualified or not qualified. Just accept me. This is a mood of Gaudiya Vaishnavas. It's a very important thing to understand, whereas I know throughout the movement there have been so many strange stories and strange things of devotees trying to imitate what they thought it meant to be an exalted devotee. And sometimes even there were men who would spit on Matajis, or I once there was a devotee I saw in Los Angeles, and Mataji wanted to talk to him. She's looking for somebody. He's wearing saffron. And he wouldn't talk to her, and she was confused. Did he hear me? And finally they said, Mataji, do you see the color of my cloth? Do you know what this means? And she looked very sad. And he told her, he said, it means I don't have to talk to you. So that's really, really strange. That's very strange. It's not natural behavior. And especially it comes from those of us who began Krishna consciousness from an outside perspective, who weren't as fortunate as Mukunda or Himanti or Chaitanya or Nandarani or Krishna Balam, all of you. Only Krishna Kumar and Bana Biharani and myself, the three of us, were raised in some other kind of culture. So for us, it's really hard to understand that. But even I see for the devotees who are born in Indian bodies also and come from a Hindu background, it's not that much different. Because the Hindu culture that I see in South Africa, the Hindu culture that I see in India today, is really not that much different from the Christian background in the West, in the sense that they're both self-oriented. They're selfishly oriented. And in the religion, again, it's just all about myself. They're more fortunate by far because they understand something about Krishna and Vishnu and Shiva and like that. And that's very wonderful. And they get to hear something about the Gita. But because unscrupulous persons have watered it down for so long, it's no longer so effective. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada wanted to give Bhagavad Gita as it is. So thank you, Himanti. I don't want to go on and on. More. Mukunda, do you want to add anything? Do you have any comments or anything? Did you win any prizes today?
Prabhuji, yes, I think I may have won a prize, but I don't know how to appreciate that prize. We mentioned, Lord Chaitanya was crying, and I can recall about 10 or 12 years back, I heard a class by Guru Maharaj, and the title of the class was "Do Not Disturb the Mood of Gaura." And in that class, I could see the intensity of Maharaj when he spoke about not disturbing this particular mood. So, since I've heard it a long time ago, I feel, there's a need for me to listen to that class again, because going through this journey with you, I think I look at things a little differently now. So if I do hear that class again, I'm hoping that I can pick up something that's essential and important as well for me to understand. So thank you for that, Prabhu. Also, on the light of, to not disturb the mood of Gaura, this is just my opinion. I've picked up two things that were important to me. One is the disciplic succession. For one, we are so fortunate to be a part of this confidential Leela of Lord Chaitanya. Even though we may just stand in the theoretical light rather than in the practical light, still we're fortunate enough to shine within the boundaries of Mahaprabhu's ecstatic, Leelas. So we are fortunate in that sense. And also, what makes us also fortunate is that we can now render service in this mission and ensure that we continue to render the service by allowing Mahaprabhu not to be disturbed, to enhance our service, to continue making him cry, in ecstatic love of God. So this is the way I see it. This is the way I understood these two principles. So thank you very much, Paul.
Thank you. That's very thoughtful. One thing I'd like to add too is that the fact, and it's a fact, and I don't want to avoid it, the fact that Srila Prabhupada told Jananivas and Malati to put a peacock feather in Mahaprabhu. It was never recorded, but we accept their memories. The fact that Srila Prabhupada said it meant that he saw some importance in that for devotees in our movement, at least some of the devotees. So that's part of our society. And I just say this because some of my godbrothers have gotten really militant over the years about this, and there's been some disturbances, and there's really no reason to be disturbed about it. We should, my suggestion will be to the deity ministry devotees that there should be something broad, and that within our broad umbrella of our Krishna conscious society, there can be different moods. And maybe some devotees, they put a peacock feather in Mayapur. Prabhupada wanted that there. That was his instruction. And other devotees in some other places, they don't. And that's okay because we're a very broad society. Anyway, thank you very much, Mukunda Prabhu. I really appreciate it.
Hare Krishna.
Nandarani, do you want to share anything today?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Nandarani and Krishna Balam, I gotta tell you guys something. I think you have a really terrible. You seem like
out of the call. We're all. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. No, so I was just saying, I'm sorry that we sort of dropping in and out. We don't have a very good connection. And we are here at the residence where my Gomaj will be arriving in a couple of days just to try to get things sorted. So I'm very sorry that we were in and out quite a lot, but it was the only time we could have. But we've been listening. What I thought was really interesting was the part that I read, Prabhu, about Krishna being more theoretical than to me. And obviously hearing about the dynamic, something that we all have to think about, because it's not about judging, it's also about questioning. And so I like that point. So thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. You're a good mother. A bad parent is one who tells a kid, just shut up and do what I said. But a good one encourages them to think. That's really nice. Is Krishna Balaram there? Is he allowed to say anything?
He's just about to do some drilling, so I think maybe he'll come on a little later.
That's fine. Actually, you guys sound like you're underwater when you're even there. It's really hard to hear you and understand. Thank you very much, Nandarani. I really appreciate it. I'm always appreciating it too, you guys taking part in this. Thank you, Krishna. Banabiharani, do you want to share anything?
Hare Krishna. First, I just wanted to thank the devotees here for welcoming me. I feel a bit shy. I don't want to intrude. I know it's an intimate sangha, so thank you for having me. And a few things that I really appreciated today. Just thinking about how Mahaprabhu's preaching was his relishment. That was a very sweet point. And also this point your Guru Maharaj makes when I was reading this morning, I thought it was very sweet. He says, Krishna is a theoretical speaker and Mahaprabhu is a practical teacher. It's very sweet. I'm just appreciating in general how you're sharing your Guru Maharaj's teachings and helping us understand the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he's come to give this Prema Nam Sankirtan and in the mood of Srimati Radharani. And yeah, it's a very deep thing. And I appreciate hearing about the mood of Mahaprabhu because I feel like it will bring me closer to understanding what will please him and understanding how I can serve him. So thank you. Also, I appreciate the topic of the peacock feather and ISKCON and the two different sides. I'm always appreciating how you share both sides. You share the philosophy and also both sides so that we can see these things with a mature vision kind of and not point blame or anything at anyone. But I would like to know, what our parampara, what the devotees would want and what Mahaprabhu would be pleased by. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's really important. I think Srila Prabhupada's biggest desire was that we cooperate together. And so maybe I can beat someone over the head and kill them, drive them out of the society because they have some misconception. But is that really a victory for Prabhupada? Have I really done a service? Have I done a disservice? It's a disservice, and we should understand that. And I also want to comment too, I'm very much hoping that we can try to accomplish in sessions is not just to understand the mood of my Guru Maharaj, but to understand Srila Prabhupada's mood through the lens of my Guru Maharaj. Because that was his desire. He wanted to please Srila Prabhupada and give strength to Srila Prabhupada's mission. And so that's why we're trying to understand these statements that he makes through Prabhupada's teachings too, and understanding, oh, this is not something so strange. Prabhupada spoke a lot about separation in different places. There's many other quotes I could provide. Prabhupada spoke a lot about separation as the most important thing, as the highest thing, as the essence of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So we should understand that. Anyway, thank you, Bana. And listen, I'm going to tell everybody here, if you guys are nice to her, maybe she'll come more often. Bana Biharni is a very, very special soul. She's very close to Krishna Kundana, so I hope everybody's nice to her. Okay? Thank you for taking part.
Just one question. This at the end, you shared something from Srila Prabhupada saying that devotees feel poor and neglected by the Lord. And I was just wondering if you could speak on that a bit.
Sometimes you feel poor and neglected?
Yes, Prabhu, but I don't know if it's so devotional.
I think we can channel that, though, in our own way. And we should feel poor and neglected, because we are poor and neglected. We don't see Krishna. We're not with him. And how do we know Krishna? As one devotee once asked my Guru Maharaj, one of his godbrothers, he said, Maharaj, you always speak that we should cry for Krishna, but I don't know Krishna, how can I cry for him? And Guru Maharaj replied, after I leave this world, then you can understand. So we know Krishna through our Gurudev. And therefore Gurudev is Sakshadarithvi. Gurudev is Charyamam Vijanaya Navam Manitakaricha. Gurudev is a manifestation of Krishna for us. I chanted Hare Krishna. I prayed to Krishna, and then Krishna came in a form. He came himself in his form of his representative of my Gurudev. I can't feel separation from Krishna, but I can feel separation from my Gurudev. And I can feel, in association with my Gurudev, I can feel very humble and meek. You know? I can feel myself very, very fallen and cry. I can feel very poor and neglected by the Lord. I can feel poor and neglected by Gurudev. My Guru Maharaj once said that unless you've seen the Swarup, the eternal spiritual form of your Guru, you've just been cheated. That's a pretty broad condemnation. It may sound very discouraging. And sometimes, actually, some of the things that he spoke sound very discouraging, but they're not meant in a discouraging sense. Rather, they're meant to provoke us that we should cry in the heart that I'm not behaving properly. Sometimes devotees, they say, why Srila Prabhupada insists on all these four regulated principles, and especially the fourth principle, which so many grihastas are not able to follow practically. And even during the time of Srila Prabhupada, if you hear it from Harisari Prabhu or different servants of Prabhupada, there was many devotees having, maybe most of the devotees, having problems following that principle at the time of Prabhupada. Someone asked me a few years ago, if that's the case, then why did Srila Prabhupada stress on it? If that's the case, then why should we stress on it? Why, what's the purpose in just making everybody feel bad? The purpose is it helps us to cry. If we don't see our sick condition, if we don't see that I'm sick and I need medicine, how will we ever be able to take the advice from the doctor? How will we be able to follow his treatment? But if we see that I'm actually very, very poor and I don't have anything and I'm not following properly, then we can begin to cry. And that's a very important thing. So for us, that's practical, that we feel very poor and neglected. Now, Madhavendra Puri, his feelings of being poor and neglected are not the same as my feelings of being poor and neglected. But they're similar on one level. His feelings are there because he has so much intense desire to be with Krishna and to see Krishna. He feels, oh, ayedina daya danata he. My dear Lord, you're the Dina Dayadanata, you're the Lord of those persons who are the most fallen. That's me, because I can't see you, because I can't be with you. That's the mood of Srimati Radharani. That Dainya Bhav, Sanatana Goswami in Brihad Bhagavatamrita says this is the mood of the gopis. And he says the amazing thing is that this is both the cause of bhakti and the fruit of bhakti. It's the cause in the sense that if we practice Trinadapisa Nichena, we're Amanina Manadena, we think ourselves lower than the straw in the street, and we give all respect to everyone else, that's very beneficial for our bhakti. And it's the fruit of bhakti, because the gopis and the devotees, when they achieve this Krishna prema, the symptom of it is that they feel themselves very low and fallen. So it's a very, very ecstatic thing. We should understand that nature, that feeling. And I think I can speak for many devotees who perhaps may be on a platform somewhat like myself, very fallen, low, that when we hear these topics, we think, my God, I'm just so far away. But that's healthy, that's good. We need to understand that. And if we don't hear anything about the gopis and what the standard is, and we may just think that the standard is, what do we think? We'll think the standard is like Jayananda Prabhu or Jamuna or some, they're great devotees. And maybe, Jamuna, before she joined, maybe sometimes she was taking some substances or something, and she was like a hippie and this and that. So that I'm like a hippie also, and I could be like that. And that's good enough for us. But when we hear about the gopis are just so very, very far away. My God, how? But that's the real standard. And I don't mean to in any way demean or diminish the greatness of Jayananda Prabhu or Mother Jamuna. I'm just saying we're only seeing their externals. And if we're paying attention that internally, I can't comment on those two very exalted personalities, or two very inspiration from me. Is that okay, Vana? Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. I hope you see what Himanti wrote. She says, I'm hoping you'll join us again, Bana Biharni. Krishna.
Thank you.
And Chaitanya Prabhu, do you have anything you want to share?
Well, just on we can understand the element around, separation externally, union internally. But I don't recall, did you talk about the opposite way around, meeting externally and separation internally? I found it a bit difficult to understand that portion of it.
We didn't. I have before. I get confused. We speak a lot about some of these same topics in the different groups, and my brain's getting old now, I think. I don't always remember what I spoke before to who. We sometimes give the example of Prem Sarovar near Barsana, when Radharani was sitting on Krishna's lap. There was very intimate union, and at that time, a bumblebee started coming. You probably know this story. And Radharani was afraid of the bee. Madhumangal drove the bee away and very proudly proclaimed, Madhusudan is gone. Madhusudan meaning the bee. Mm. And Radharani, when she heard that, she began to cry in separation from Krishna. She's sitting in Krishna's lap. That's known as Prema Vaicitya. When the lover and the beloved are together, but they're feeling separation. And seeing Radharani crying, Krishna also began to cry. And the combined tears of the divine couple formed that kund, which is still there today, known as Prem Sarovar. So that's an example of when there's external union, but internal separation. And seeing that, some of our acharyas have commented that when Krishna saw that mood of Radharani, he thought, this is so extraordinary. When we're together, she's feeling separation. When we're apart, she's feeling union. So let me leave Vrindavan. And he's also leaving to fulfill another purpose, which is to apariyaham nirvadya samyujam. So he wanted to repay his debt to the gopis. And the only way to repay that debt, the debt of love, is to show the greatness of the beloved's feelings. And so he had to shine a spotlight on the feelings of the gopis. No one knew about the feelings of the gopis. And so to shine that light on them, he left Vrindavan and put them in an ocean of suffering and crying. And if he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have known about how great the gopis are. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments in the 46th chapter, the 10th canto, he says that just as a goldsmith heats gold to prove its purity, so Krishna applied the heat of separation, Virpalamba Agni, to the hearts of the gopis to show their greatness. And how paradoxical their love is. When there's external union, there's internal separation and vice versa. And this, of course, also ultimately indicates Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mahaprabhu is the embodiment of separation. If we don't understand these feelings of separation, we can't understand Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That's a little introductory topics about it. Is that helpful, Chaitanya Prabhu?
Yes, it's helpful, Prabhu. I'm just struggling with a little bit on like the drivers behind it. Maybe I think a bit too materially, in the sense that we can understand if externally there's separation, so you internalize, so to speak, your relationship with Krishna, if I'm getting it right. But what's kind of fueling that separation when there's union? Is it a sense of anxiety that the separation is going to come, or something of that sort that fuels it? What kind of makes that happen? I'm not quite understanding that.
Well, in the example we gave about Prem Sarovar, it's unmadana, it's divine madness. And the nature of that divine madness is that there's so much ecstasy. The ecstasy in union with Krishna is so intense that they become mad, and they can't see that Krishna is actually there, and they begin to feel separation.
Yeah, that helps.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu.
And that's also why Mother Yashoda, she's always in anxiety about Krishna. She's with Krishna all the time, but she's always worried something's going to happen to him. And that's why not far from Gokul, there's a deity of Chinteshwar Mahadev, who was a deity of Lord Shiva. They say that Mother Yashoda worshipped in Dwapara Yuga to become free from her anxieties about Krishna, and to pray to Lord Shiva, you please protect my little boy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chaitanya Prabhu. Anything else, anybody from you or anyone else?
Just a comment, Prabhu. It's just a statement. We can probably also end on that with nothing else. But today I was speaking to a pretty senior devotee in our movement, and about his early days, etc. And he was talking about his absorption in his service. I mean, all he did was service. That was his kind of mood. And he kept on stressing, but today's age, the devotees aren't in the spirit. And then he kind of asked me, because obviously I stepped away from management, but you've been like a little bit away from everything. And I said, no, but I was trying to internalize a little bit more. And your point around the relishment element is such a missing concept amongst our devotees. Even somebody as seasoned as this devotee, practicing for 40 years or whatever it may be, that at some point we've got to move away from just the service, that can put it into the inverted commas, and come to that relishment element. That's why I thought it was really amazing that you're talking about this concept. If Lord Chaitanya himself was coming for this relishment, what about for us? I mean, we probably only can relish bits and pieces here and there to the extent of our ability, but still we've got to try and strive for it, and try and taste as much as we can, So I think it is a massive part that's lacking in a lot of devotees. I think if there was a lot more relishment taking place, I think there would be a lot more levels of satisfaction, a lot more levels of even cooperation, for that matter.
Yeah, sometimes we equate, and I could give examples, I'm dead serious about this. Sometimes in our society, we've equated relishment to be like sahajiism. That if you're doing that, then you're just a sahaji. And Prabhu, I've been told exactly this by one of our leading devotees some years ago. We just work hard for Krishna. And that's okay. That's a fact. We do work hard for Krishna, but when you get old, what are you going to do? And is it so pleasing to Krishna You know, some of you have children. The child wants to do something for you. If they do it very mechanically, or even begrudgingly, or to speak of begrudgingly, if they do it mechanically, it's not so pleasing. But if they do it with full love, knowing that you're pleased by that thing and understanding your mood, that's so endearing to the heart. And even it may not be as much hard work, but if they do it with that spirit of love and understanding your mood, that's relishment. Unless we come to the point of understanding the mood of the Vaishnavas, the mood of Gurudev, the mood of Krishna, Gauranga Mahaprabhu, how can we please them? And that's something we can relish. That's a very confidential, special thing. We relish it in the material world. You know, in high school, two girls sit together and one of them starts revealing her mind to the other one. And that's like the most relishable thing for that girl to understand the inner feelings of my best friend. And that's how they come close together. That relishment means intimacy. Okay? So we'll go ahead and stop there. I want to thank everybody very much. And thank you all for being so nice to Vana Bihari. She's real close with us. So maybe we'll see you guys next week. I'm just going to stay tuned. I felt a little encouraged today. I heard an online class this morning from Naranjan Maharaj. He's getting ready to go traveling. And he's been doing online classes, I think 3 or 4 times a week. And he told the devotees, so I don't know what's going to happen when I go traveling. We'll just take it as it comes. So that's all that I can say too, because things change all of a sudden and traveling is it's a little hard. But I'm trying. I think we can try. I'll try to keep it this time if we can, and then we'll let everybody know if there's any problem, if we have to cancel or something. Okay, it's very nice. Thank you all so much for taking part in this today.
Thank you so much, Madhavana, always making so much of an effort for us. We appreciate it very much.
Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bo, Panchakalpatarubhascha, Sindhu Devacha, Patitanam Pavan Go Vaishnavi